Guess what time it is?
Entertainment Dudes.
The dudes of entertainment here. How are you doing? I'm Cam Cornelius, the voiceover dude.
And I'm Jason Crossman, the entertainment dude. Oh, wait a minute. We're both entertainment dudes. I'm director dude.
Dudes. Yes,
I'm
you're
entertaining,
dude.
and you're entertaining too, Cam. Don't worry about that.
That was so nice. I love it.
know,
I love
isn't
when you
it?
talk like that.
You're
That's
great,
so beautiful.
Cam. You're just the best. You really make the show special.
Thank you so much.
No,
and you know who else
and
makes
you
the
and
show
your
special?
man bun.
You know
What?
who else makes
Our
the
guests.
show special?
I think our guests.
Our guest, which is multimedia mogul, and he has worked for CBS, the Grand Ole Opry, WSM Radio.
Dave Ramsey.
He's back
He's worked
here with
for
us today.
Yes.
It is Zack Bennett.
Hey
guys.
Hello, Zach. How are you, sir?
Doing great.
Good.
to see you
Thanks so
guys.
much for last week, because it was exciting having you and learning about your early career before you even got to WSM and what you've been working on there, and just hearing all the exciting history of Nashville. But we have, I think before we start the show, we have a very, very important question.
Very important question.
I don't even know,
very
should we even really ask him this? Because I feel it might be too personal.
No, I don't think so. We got to know each other pretty well during the last.
Yeah,
year,
we
so
know
I
each
think
other
that's-
pretty good.
Yeah.
I think we can go personal with it.
All right,
Okay.
All right.
All right. So, which shirt do you think is better for the Entertainment Dudes merch? We have one with Cam and my face, or one without Cam's and my face. I know it's tough to decide which one.
I tell you what,
which one is better?
I'm gonna be very political here because I like the one with the caricatures on it, but I like the color of Cam's shirt better that doesn't have the caricatures on it.
Okay,
Is
so
that-
Cam, come.
That's just
come
me.
close.
I prefer the light.
Is
Come
that
as
because of
close to-
MTSU? I mean, the blue.
Oh, blue is definitely. I mean, I'm wearing like a green thing today,
Green,
but blue
but
is
yeah.
definitely my color. Yeah, for sure.
Yes. So, I mean, if you had a choice to have our faces on there at
Forget
merch.entertainmentdudes.com.
the color. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And you just have a choice of having Cam's in my face.
Oh wait, I got.
Entertainment Dudes.
I like them both, though. I
Hey,
do.
I think we're going to have to
Listen,
send some swag out to Zach. He's
Yes, we're going to have to do that now. For
Let's
a
go with
third
the one with the
option-
caricatures, though. Let's go with
Okay,
the
with
one
the
okay.
caricatures, and we were thinking
Yeah.
for a third option, maybe if people don't want Jason's in my face, but they want a face, could we put two of your faces just on either
Instead?
side? Can we license your image?
No one would buy that.
Oh, you sure?
This
you
is
sure?
a face for radio, guys. This is a face for radio.
Well,
I don't
guess that's-
know.
I guess that's a no.
I guess that's a no, Cam. Hey, we tried,
We
bro. We
tried.
did
We
try. We
tried.
tried to get it. I think
Oh,
it would have
well.
been, he'd have been great.
All right. Well, let's get back into it.
Yeah. So, next question.
There were a lot of firsts, even going back to WSMV or WSM-TV. DeWitt,
Jack.
one of the engineers, Jack DeWitt. That's right.
Yeah.
Jack DeWitt was one of the engineers, and he was like the first person in his team to bounce signals back off the moon, and they did it from the WSM site, which I thought was just amazing. They were figuring out ways to bring a TV signal, like a network TV signal in, and all that kind of stuff. And it was just some amazing stuff in the history. And so I'm so glad that WSM radio is still around.
And me too. I mean, not just because I get to work there, but it's just the history of it and what it means to the city. There's a little bit of a debate as to where the term Music City came from.
Mm-hmm.
And there's two stories. One of them is that it was uttered by WSM's morning guy one time in the 50s, where he called it Music City, USA. And then the other one goes back quite a bit further. I think it was into the 19th century when some students from Fisk went to England and performed for the Queen. And the Queen said, "You people must come from a city of music." And so there's two stories. Nobody really knows which one is true, but we're going to claim that our side of it at least.
So that was the Jubilee Singers, correctly?
Yeah, the
Correct,
Fisk Jubilee
right?
Singers.
Fisk Jubilee
Yeah.
Singers. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, there is so much. I don't think a lot of people realize how much history and actually culture have come from the city of Nashville. It's amazing. And I'm not talking about goo goo clusters, but I'm talking about so much as far as the arts, and it's just been an amazing city to live in.
Nashville has a reputation for being what they call the third coast. LA being one, New York being another, and because of all the entertainment industry, especially the music industry in Nashville, was called the Third Coast, and that is the name of the comedy club where I'm taking my improv classes, Third Coast Comedy Club.
Third Coast,
and that's where it got its name from. That. And there's like a pottery studio that's completely unrelated called Third Coast Pottery in Nashville. There's a lot of.
There used to be a restaurant back when I was a kid. There used to be a restaurant called the Third Coast. It was in the Vanderbilt area. So I've grown up hearing that, it's the Third Coast.
So what do you do to prep for a show? Like if you're doing a radio show, what goes into actually being a good radio host?
Okay. Well, I'm very lucky that my shows that I have on WSM are very defined. And a lot of what we do is very defined. We are only playing just, music from 10 a.m. until 7 p.m. every day. That's the only time we're just in music block. And that's when we get a lot of peak listeners, because people listen at work and they'll stream it in their cars and things like that. So, and then we have a morning show that does a lot of interviews and things like that. So my shows, though, I do the hour leading into the Grand Ole Opry every Saturday night, and that's called the Opry Warm-Up Show. And then I just launched a new show that comes on after the Opry on Saturday nights from 9:15 to 11 called Opry Star Spotlight. And so we're really building this theme that Saturday night is Opry night, because the Grand Ole Opry has been on every Saturday night since 1925, with one exception. And the one exception was the weekend that Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. Nashville put in a city curfew, and the Opry abided by that. So that's the only week that there was no Grand Ole Opry show, going all the way back to 1925, and for good reason. When we say the lineage, we don't really talk about that a lot, because it wasn't by choice, or it was kind of forced upon us. So the show is still considered the longest continually running show in the world. But so we do the programming block from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. is Opry night, and it's all themed around the Opry. So from 6 to 7 I'm on, and it's called the warm-up show. So what I get to do is I get to play music by every artist who is going to be on the show that night, just to kind of preview for the audience. This is who's going to be on. So if Ricky Skaggs is on and Vince Gill is on and whoever, if we know they're on the show, we're going to play music by them in that hour leading up to it. Then the show itself comes on. That's 2.5 hours, 2 hours, 15 minutes or so, depending on how long they run. There's no set out time. They just finish when they finish. And then I come on after that, and I've this new show I'm really like called Opry Star Spotlight, where I take one Grand Ole Opry member every week and I just play a whole bunch of their songs and tell stories about their lives and their careers and maybe some little known facts about them. And so there goes to a lot of research into that. So this past week I did Trisha Yearwood, and we played I think 7 or 8 of her songs over the course of that 2 hours. And then we'd come out of each one talking about, that song went to number 2 in 1997. And here's a little story behind that song, or she's won 3 Grammys and 3 CMAs and 3 ACMs. So it's just looking up all this fun information about the artist and kind of formulating the show around that. And so I've got a standard format clock. So I know every week, I'm going to lead the show with the song from that artist, come out talking about it. So it's a lot of cut and paste, cookie cutter stuff, but you have to present it different every week based on the artist that we're talking about. I got really good fortune this week because Trisha showed up as a surprise guest on the Grand Ole Opry to close out the show. I didn't know that was going to happen. So it worked out really well that as soon as she went off, I came on and was like, hey, guess who we're doing tonight?
You've always been a kind of a history buff, especially about Nashville. And I suppose that kind of helps with you being able to write this stuff. I mean, Zack, we've got a newspaper in town called the Nashville Scene, and every year Zack dominates the You're So Nashville If portion of that. They do these awards, and Zack has some amazing ones. Yes, You're So Nashville If, and you got to tell us.
I didn't know you were going to talk about this. I just happen to have them sitting right next to me.
What are some of your favorites of You're So Nashville If?
Well, So just a backstory of what this is this it's the alternative weekly newspaper in Nashville. It's every year they do a contest for one-liners. You are so Nashville if ... And it kind of like the Jeff Foxworthy, you might be a redneck type of joke. And it's a lot of inside humor about the city that if you're not paying attention to what goes on in the city, you're not going to get the jokes. So I actually won 2 years in a row, which there aren't very many people who have won once. And for me to win 2 years in a row, you know what I got for it?
What?
Nothing.
Just the
A
satisfaction.
giant goose egg.
I didn't get a trophy or anything, but I do have the papers. And so the first one, it's funny. It's about a city bus in Nashville that was called the AMP that they were proposing. And it was going to be like a bus rapid transit system that would go from downtown to Bellmead,
West End,
right down the middle of West End Avenue. And it was just a horrible idea. It was just such a bad idea. And that's
because that was already a pain in the rear to drive that road. It was terrible.
And so we're going to take lanes away and
2
put
lanes
buses on
from that, and then good luck. I'm like, oh my gosh.
And so it didn't happen. It still hasn't happened. And this was in 2014. And my joke was, you are so Nashville if your AMP goes to 11, but not to Bellmead after they the project. Which is an inside joke, of course, on Spinal Tap.
Spinal Tap.
The numbers all go to 11.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
Yes.
And so they drew up a bus that had crashed. Well, here's the irony. When I found out I won, I was in New York City on a city bus. Just happened to be on vacation in New York City and got a phone call from the Nashville scene wanting to interview me. And I was like, why? Did I win? And they're like, well, yeah. I was like, oh, cool. And then the next year was an inside media joke in Nashville. And so there's a guy who's been on the news here in Nashville named Bob Mueller since I was a toddler. I think he started in like 82.
Forever.
He's still on. He's still on Channel 2. I mean, every night. And he is the Ron Burgundy of Nashville.
Oh, the stash.
And he does not age. I mean, the man looks the same now as he did in the 80s. And it's weird. So
he's like Dick Clark and Ron Burgundy mixed together.
Yeah.
So right.
So he's got a very signature mustache that he has had ever since. And so Nashville, and it's still such a city on the move and changing so much. They're building a new building every week. If you drive downtown, you're going to see buildings that weren't there a month ago that you're just like, what? Where did that come from? And they were tearing down city landmarks to build these nondescript buildings, basically. And so the joke was, you were so Nashville if you're afraid that Bob Mueller's mustache will be torn down to build a high-rise apartment building. So Bob, I've never met Bob. I would love to meet him. I've never met him. Again, we have a bunch of common friends, but I've never actually met him. So they called me and they said, we would love for you to come down to the station and we'll do a little story with you and Bob about this. And I was like, that would be so much fun. And unfortunately, that was the same day that there was a mass shooting in Chattanooga. At the military recruiting agency down there, and they stopped all their, they went to hard news that day and they canceled it. And then by that point it was old and they didn't want to make it up. So that unfortunately never got to happen, but it would have been fun to joke around with Bob about that. And Bob was a great sport from what I understand. I know several people that work at Channel 2 and they said Bob absolutely loved it and in no way was insulted by it. He was actually honored that he got to be on the front of the Nashville scene in cartoon form without his mustache. So, but that's so much fun. And I'm glad you brought that up, Cam. I haven't thought about that in a long time because I stopped, there was a period when I just stopped going to Nashville for anything. The city was getting so out of control and I was staying down here in the suburbs and working in the suburbs and actually had great pride in the fact of how little I went into the city. But that doesn't happen now. I'm up there 7 days a week.
Right.
Doesn't happen anymore.
So anything else we want to cover about that you talked?
We talked about my radio career a lot, but I had a very brief foray into video And it's worked out, I know you guys said you don't enjoy doing much video editing anymore, and I kind of do, but I think it's because I'm new at it.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
learning
It's
it.
because you're new at it.
Give it time, my son. Give it time.
So
You will come to hate it just as much as we do.
When I was working for Ramsey, I was mainly doing audio work for them, but that slowly, and I mean very slowly, over the course of like 8 years, transitioned into a video editing role. And that's very slow, 8 years to change from one job to another, but that's exactly
very slow. I usually use the 8-minute version, but 8 years is fine.
8 years. Woo.
So I got kind of a crash course in how to video edit from some great, talented people that I worked with down there.
Wait, did I help you?
No, this was after you guys were gone.
Oh, then there wasn't anyone talented that helped you. What are you talking about?
Well, they wouldn't let me edit when you guys were there because I had
That's
the
true.
reputation
Because
that
why
you guys
would they?
was-
They're like, we have options.
They had good people at the time. But anyway, there were some great people that I worked with there that taught me a lot about how to video edit in a very short amount of time so that we could get these shows on the air. Well, when I left there, it took me a few months to find a new job, but I landed at CBS Sports, which was really cool to have that experience for a few months. It wasn't in the long run, it probably wasn't my cup of tea, but it was actually a division of CBS Sports for their internet stuff. It's called 24/7 Sports. It's a division of CBS Sports that covers high school football recruiting and high school basketball recruiting mainly, and college sports. But it was founded by a guy here in Nashville, so the office is still here in Nashville. It was actually in the CMT building downtown.
Okay.
So I got to work down there for about 8 months. And to get to work for Paramount and get to be in on like the Paramount Zoom video stuff with we got to watch the upfronts last year, which is the first time I'd ever seen an upfront. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's great.
And then I found out it was Paramount's last upfront. They're not doing them anymore. They canceled it this year and going forward. But I got to watch that and all like the all company meetings with the big CBS people, and here's Nora O'Donnell to tell us about what's going on in CBS News. And it was a really neat experience to work for CBS for a few months. And I got to work with the video, to do some video editing and work with the graphics and build chroma key stuff. And it was really, really fun for a little while. But the WSM job came calling while I was there. The whole time I was there, I was doing contract work for WSM.
Okay.
And so when there was an opening full time, I was just like, deuces, I was out of there.
Yeah.
But had made some great friends down there, and it kind of scratched that itch to see what it's like to work for one of those big conglomerate media companies. And I've nothing but good things to say about it. It was a great experience. It was just something that was more suited for me came along, and my boss there was like, dude, go for it. He's like, if this is your dream job, you need to go. I don't want to hold you back from that. Wow. So they were super cool about that. But I really enjoyed my time there. Looking back on it, it was an interesting experience for sure.
Do you see possibly, because you do have the video experience now, moving forward, is there a chance that you'll do more of that at WSM as well for online and things of that nature?
It could. I've already produced a couple of things for our YouTube channel. We don't do a lot of video capturing. We have our morning show that's on Circle, but because Circle is a joint venture, it's a little hard to get that video because we don't technically own it. Okay. So we can't do a whole lot with it, but we've talked some about how we want to utilize that. And so there's a little bit of red tape there, but I don't want to go too deep into that. But I did, it was funny. This past week, we celebrated the 49th anniversary of the opening of the Grand Ole Opry House. Yes. And the night that it opened, Richard Nixon was there. He performed. He played "God Bless America" on the piano.
Richard Nixon.
The
Richard Nixon,
President
Nixon.
I am not a country star.
If you want to,
but I'm really good at country music.
if you really want to dive deep, this was like right in the middle of Watergate, like 4 months before he resigned. But he came to the Opry House, and so there's video of that night.
Oh wow!
And,
wow!
I asked our archive people. I said, "Do we have video from the first Opry at the Opry House? And they said, yeah. And they gave me a Dropbox. It was just full of video from that first show. And it was just, as a history buff and a nerd, it was kind of fun to watch it all. But I got with the executive producer of the Opry and I said, what if I took some of that video and made you like a 1.5-minute package? Could we play that on the Opry Saturday night? And he was like, absolutely, go for it. And so I took my video editing skills and I made a package, and we played it on the Opry Thursday night and Saturday night. And, you know, that went in front of 4,500 people each night in the building. And of course, the people listening on the radio couldn't see it, but they could hear it. But it was so cool to kind of comb through that video and then create something. And then that actually went up to like the highest levels of Opry Entertainment Group. The executive producer of the Opry, who is not technically my boss, but I do work very closely with him as I write these scripts and everything. He passed that up, and that's been passed around at the top levels of the company. And so it's like, oh, our radio guy over here is editing video now. So I don't know where that will lead.
Be careful. Be careful. The moment they find out you do that, it's like a vacuum cleaner. The universe just sucks you into it. Exactly. And no matter how hard you try to run in the opposite direction, the suction will
it's a tractor beam. Yeah.
You're done, man. It's like, I'm sorry, the Death Star has you. There's no escape.
So at what point, Zach, is there going to be a bobblehead made of you? Is what I want to know.
There hasn't been. I'm surprised my wife hasn't made one of me for me.
Zach is, if you can look up over his shoulder there, that's only a portion of his bobblehead collection.
Yeah, the rest of them, and I don't want to. I don't want to turn the camera around, but I have so many WWE Funko Pops that I don't have any place to put them. They're stacked up on the floor.
You can send us a picture of them.
Maybe I will. Yeah, I'll send a picture if you want to edit it in.
Yeah, we can edit it in.
Yeah. So it's this room is, I've presented to you the best looking part of this room. You don't maybe not want to see the rest of it. But bobbleheads, Funko Pops, I collect as many of them as I can. Yeah, these up here were all from when we were Predators season ticket holders a few years ago, and they would give them out, at the games and stuff. So I collected a lot of them from there.
Oh, that's so awesome. So we've talked a little bit about the editing and so forth. What is next? What do you foresee either happening in Nashville or with your career, or do you have a vision of what you would like to see? Improv, whatever you're doing,
I told my boss this when they hired me. I said, if I end my career at the Grand Ole Opry, I'll be satisfied. There's so much of my career that it's the weirdest thing, and I don't want to go too much because I know we're running out of time, but so much of my career has revolved around that place particularly. There was Opryland theme park. I know when you guys were talking to one of your guests a couple of weeks ago about Opryland theme park.
It's a legend across the land. Opryland is it, the original country hit.
I grew up going to that theme park all the time. And my dad, when I really got the broadcasting bug, I said he was on radio, but what really got me into it was he was a contestant on Fandango, which was a game show that was on the Nashville network in the 80s.
On Fandango.
And when I was maybe 4 or 5 years old, I got to go to the taping of this game show, which was in the building right next door to the Grand Ole Opry House. It's since been demolished because it was destroyed in the flood a few years ago. But that was where I really fell in love with wanting to be in media, to go into that studio and see something that I had seen on television in real life. It just caused my eyes were bugging out of my head. Wow. And he developed a relationship with the producers because we just lived a few miles away. And when they launched another game show a few years later, they invited him to come on and be on the pilot. So I got to go back a couple of years later when I was 7 or 8 years old and do the whole thing over again and see the studio and get to be in that environment. And so because of that, I've been a game show nut my whole life.
Yeah.
And so I've been to tapings of Price is Right and Jeopardy, and I was on Wheel of Fortune, and I'm trying to get on more game shows. I'm like still applying for those. I'd love to be back on a game show again. So if
I
I fly
love
to
that.
LA, I might need a place to crash, Jason, just so you know.
Deal.
But and then to be on Wheel of Fortune on that stage, and
Oh,
now to
wow,
come
yeah.
and work on that stage, it's just like it keeps sucking me back in. It's drawing. You talk about tractor beam. The Grand Ole Opry is where it's where my career really started as a kid, where I really wanted to get involved in this, and now it's where it's led me to. The Opry has brought me so much joy just listening to it as a kid on the radio, and I didn't go very much. It was always kind of a joke that if you're from Nashville, you don't go to the Grand Ole Opry.
Right.
I never went 15 years.
Yeah, and
except for work. I went to
our biggest clientele are people from out of town. That's no
amazing.
secret. Everybody knows that. But I went a few times, but now that I get to work there, I get to go whenever I want to, and I will sneak into a show. Tonight is one I really would have liked to have gone to. I'm nothing against you guys. It was one of those that it was after we had scheduled the thing. I looked at who was on the Opry night, and I was like, "Oh, dang! I'm not going to cancel on them." But that would have been a good one to go to.
Hey, we canceled on you like 10 times. You should have done it.
Hey.
You should have
That's
done
why
it.
I didn't. I figured I had my window. I'm not gonna
Stick it back to us. So
stick it to you guys. Take that.
I'm just joking with you guys. But I did tell my boss when I got there, I said, if this is where I spend the rest of my career, I'll be happy.
Wow.
But because this is where I feel like it's all led to, and I have such a passion for the city and for its history, and WSM being such a part of that city's history, to be there and to be a part of it and to be a part of the Grand Ole Opry, it really is a dream job. And it was a weird road that led me there, but I'm there, and I'm not taking any minute of it for granted. And when I go out and step on that stage in the afternoon, they're still giving tours at that point. There's nobody in there. It's just a big empty room, and there's tour groups coming through and stuff. But it still blows my mind when I turn around and I see the Grand Ole Opry barn, and I look out and there's all the empty seats out there. It's just like, wow, this is a really cool place to be.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've been now. I was at the Grand Ole Opry probably 5 or 6 times, but I've never seen the seats. I've always been, everything I shot was behind.
Oh,
So
really?
do interviews. Yeah. With all the artists going. So the last time I was there, Vince Gill had a huge honorary, and they honored his whole career, and he did a bunch of songs, but I did all the interviews with him before he went out there, and he played some songs back there, and, he had a couple other of his friends come, and I never got to go in the actual auditorium. I've only been behind the auditorium. So I don't even know what other than what I've seen on TV. I've never seen it, even though I've been there like 5 times. Yeah, church pews. It's
church pews. That's where you sit when you go to the Opry. It's not like stadium seating, and that's a nod to when the Opry was at the Ryman. Downtown, because the Ryman started as a church, and so the original pews from the Ryman are still in the building.
That's
going
amazing.
Back 130 years,
and a little piece of the floor too, the circle.
They cut out that hole from the floor. And I wrote a joke in the Opry script a couple months ago, and the announcer didn't read it. And I was so mad because I was like, this is such a great joke. So the Opry was going back to the Ryman in January. They go back there every winter for a month or two, so they can do some refurbs at the Opry House. And so I wrote the joke that, hey, where the Opry is going to the Ryman, this circle on the floor that is like that. Now the circle has taken on such a great meaning in the Opry's history, but that circle in the floor is from the stage at the Ryman. And so the joke I wrote was, well, the Opry's going back to the Ryman, but don't worry, we've covered up the hole in the floor. The artist's not going to fall through. And the announcer skipped right over it. And I'm listening to it going, oh, come on now. That was a good one.
That was gold.
Oh man. Oh, so that's funny.
I got the visual of Vince Gill walking out on the stage and whoop, straight down.
Oh, hey, Zack, what advice would you give to somebody of any age? Maybe even a little guy running around and is interested in this business.
Do it. Just find a way in and do it. And don't be afraid to step out and be bold. And I've had some students from Middle Tennessee connect with me because there's an alumni connect with student thing that MTSU is doing now. And so as an alum, I've enrolled in that program. And so I've had students reach out to me, and I always give them the same advice. I'm like, don't ever act like you're too good to do anything in this business, because that's how you get in and that's how you earn respect. Is you have to, especially when you're young, do the dirty work, and that's how you will earn the respect of the people above you. Is just don't be afraid to do anything, and don't ever say no to an opportunity, unless it's, you know, really egregious. You know, there are certain lines you don't want to cross, but for the most part, don't say no to an opportunity. You know, that's what I'm serious about that. But but you know, take every opportunity you get. And it's a lesson I'm having to teach myself again doing improv, because I am so nervous stepping out onto that stage. And my instructor in my level 1 gave me the best advice, and she just said, lead with the body and the brain will follow. And I'm like, there's so many lessons that can be taught even in non-improv scenarios about that, is to just do something, lead with the body, just take that step and you'll catch up. Don't overthink it.
Oh man, thanks for the advice. Thanks
great.
for sharing your career with us. It's so great to
Thanks
talk
for having
with you
me
again.
on.
Oh man,
it's so great seeing both of you guys again. It's been what, 5-6 years since we all talked together. So
yeah, it's been crazy.
Yeah, no, I've been out here 8 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
time is
like,
going by. I was thinking the other
crazy
day, because I remember the three of us did a video shoot at the Smyrna airport, which is about a mile from my house. And so every time I drive by it, I still think of that video shoot.
We did that, and we also did one with it was an airplane. I'm trying to remember what
it was. The guy.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah, it's like turboprops and things, but he owned it was a leadership video that we were shooting.
He also did one.
That's right.
Also did one at a dry cleaner with an owner.
The very next day.
Right,
that was a good one.
Yes.
And what did I call you? I remember you got pissed at me for something. Captain Redbeard or something. You were like, oh yeah. And he was like, don't call me that. And Cam was laughing. He's like, don't call me Captain Redbeard.
He's probably he's probably cursing you under his breath right now.
Bitter about it.
But you should use that as a character on your improv, though.
Yes.
I was much more temperamental and much more of a hothead in those days. I am cooled way off now, so it wouldn't bother me at all. I don't even remember
what it was for, because we were laughing about something. And what is that? They got my shirt popped open or something in the middle of that same guy's interview.
Open. He was standing there, and the guy we were interviewing kept looking down at Jason like this and laughing. And finally, he just breaks down. He's like, I can't. And Jason's shirt had popped open right there in front of his belly button, and it was like Jason's belly button was talking to the guy.
It was that same interview we did with you, man.
I forgot all about that.
He kept going like this. He's like, then I have the.
Yeah. He's like, I'm sorry, I just can't. He's
sorry,
like,
guys.
Your shirt is open. It's like your belly button's talking to me. I'm like,
I totally forgot about that until just now. Oh, what a great memory.
Yeah, that was so funny.
All right. So
thanks for having me on, guys. It's been a joy to talk to you guys again, and it's just been so much fun. So thanks for having me on. And
looking forward to following your career more and seeing everything else you got going on. It's pretty exciting, and definitely want to catch some of your shows. So where's the best place to follow you, listen to you, and see what you're doing?
I stay off of social media all that much. I don't have a Twitter account. I have an Instagram at ZackTN, ZACKTN. And I would say the best place to hear me is on WSM every Saturday night from 6 to 7 Central, and then again from 9:15 to 11 Central, and then enjoy the Grand Ole Opry in the middle.
All right. Hey, can you close out our show?
Yeah.
On the spot improv.
I have to
lead with your body. Lead with your body.
On behalf of Jason Crossman and Cam Cornelius, I'm Zack Bennett, who's been the guest but now gets to close the show. You've been listening and watching Entertainment Dudes.
Man, that was great. I like that.
Awesome. Whoa. Hello.
Oh, it came back on.
And then it leaves.
Thanks, Zack. Thanks for leaving us. Hey, it's supposed to stay off. There we go.
Thanks, Zack.
That was great.
I think can we use that for other ends of the episode? Because maybe we could do.
I think we might have just replaced us with him.
I think so.
The show was.
It can be our official show.
Yeah, the show was better. I think it was better.
Much
Don't you
better.
think so?
I liked it. It was great.